Hi, I'm Jenna Gice, and this is my DSARI project on insulation testing. What did I do? I used 5 different materials to insulate a coffee mug to see how we can better insulate our homes, such as in our attics and our walls, and overall this information will help us reduce our heating and air conditioning bills. Some background information on insulation is that it's used to reduce the transfer or leakage of heat. It's very important in a part of a house's construction because in old houses they have worse insulation, so it's harder to keep heat in or out. It's measured in an R value, and it's more desirable to have a higher R value. Most common types of insulation used in our homes are fiberglass, spray foam, cellulose, and mineral wool. Alright, the materials I used were a coffee mug, foam sheets, aluminum foil, a laser thermometer, wool socks, saran wrap, and bubble wrap. Alright, what I did for my process was I put water into a coffee cup and warmed it up into the microwave. I then used my laser thermometer and measured the temperature right before putting the insulation around it to get the starting temperature. I then put the insulation around the mug and checked the temperature after 3 minutes and 5 minutes to determine the difference in temperature, and then I repeated this process for each insulation that I tested. So my first experiment was with no insulation at all, so I started out at 115 degrees Fahrenheit, and I ended at 103 degrees Fahrenheit with an overall loss of 12 degrees Fahrenheit. For the bubble wrap, the starting temperature was 136 degrees Fahrenheit and ended at 123 degrees Fahrenheit with an overall loss of 13 degrees, and there's just a picture of what it looked like. This was the foam packing sheets. The starting temperature was at 131 degrees Fahrenheit, ended at 121 with an overall loss of 10 degrees. Wool socks was a fun one to do. We started off with a 121 degrees Fahrenheit and ended with 113 with an overall loss of only 8 degrees, so that was actually showed to be a pretty good insulator, and it looked kind of cool too. Plastic wrap didn't do so hot. It started off at 134 and ended at 122 with an overall loss of 12 degrees Fahrenheit. The last insulation I used was aluminum foil. It started out at 124 degrees Fahrenheit, ended at 118, with an overall loss of only 6, which was our best insulator. This table just shows you a better view of all of my results and shows that aluminum foil was the best insulator. So I did research and I found that aluminum foil can be used as a radiant barrier, and radiant barriers are a type of insulation and they are highly reflective materials that reflect radiant heat rather than absorb it. And these types of insulation work best during the summer or in climates where it's warm. And it's most commonly used in attics where a good chunk of our heat is lost in our homes. What it does is it prevents the heat from flowing down into our living areas and instead reflects it back up. And this actually reduces cooling costs in the summer by 5 to 10%. And because there's so many factors that go into radiant barriers, there is not a specific R value for them. Here is an example of aluminum foil being used as a radiant barrier. So a little real-world information. A study done by Oak Ridge National Laboratory showed that radiant barriers will actually save you money in energy bills compared to not having one at all. And then if you just look at the graph, with a radiant barrier is the red, so you can see that's less money that you're spending. In order to quantify these results, I found a radiant barrier calculator online. So if you live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with an attic size of 2,025 square feet, which is the floor size, that contains ducts and insulation with an R value less than 30, then potentially your savings will be, with just adding a radiant barrier, approximately $100 for after 20 years, And if you add a radiant barrier and better insulation, you could be saving $7,700. So that's definitely worth it. So what about the socks that came in second? Well, they're not as practical. You're not going to put wool socks in between your walls, but instead, there's another solution. You can exchange those wool socks for a similar insulation material like sheep's wool. Sheep's wool has an R value of 3.5 per inch of material. That's pretty good for wall insulation. So in conclusion, we found that aluminum foil and wool socks were the best insulators for my coffee mug. Aluminum foil are the radiant barriers to prevent heat flow in attics, and sheep wool can be a substitute for the wool socks, and it can be used to insulate walls, or you can just use the wool socks to keep your coffee from getting cold. Here are my references. Thanks for listening.